When you think about all the thousands and thousands of books that have been written over the last 100 years just on the subject of personal development, how is it possible to narrow it all down to just one book? Yet that's the question I'm asked over and over again. Michael, if there's just one book, where should I start? What would you recommend? And while it's hard to get past Think and Grow Rich, the recommendation that I make more often than not, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, just the title alone has to intrigue you to want to know more, doesn't it? It's not the 7 habits of ordinary people or even the 7 habits of successful people, the 7 habits of highly effective people. So, over the next few lessons, let's take a look at those 7 habits and how they can make you more highly effective. Here we go. The 7 habits, what are they? And what could they mean for you and me when it comes to being more highly effective? Habits like be proactive, begin with the end in mind, put first things first, paradigms, principles, included in a book that individual after individual, even now generations of individuals have said, this got me started in a new direction. Think win-win. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Synergize. The power of the team. What we can all do together that none of us can accomplish alone. And then sharpen the saw. Working on you. Your tools. Let's take a look at the inside out, an overview of the 7 habits. The first time I ever heard the word paradigm was reading the 7 Habits in 1989. This is my first edition copy from my library. I remember hearing that word and thinking, paradigm, what does that mean exactly? Well, it's a Greek-based word that once upon a time was about a scientific term, but later it became known as how we see things, a perspective, a frame of reference. And whenever you talk about how we see things, you also have to wonder if that has something to do with how we don't see other things. That's what Dr. Covey described as a paradigm. And then he went on to talk about principles. Principles are different from ideas because ideas are unproven, but principles are time-tested. And in the overview to the 7 habits, which I highly encourage you to read before getting started in this book, Dr. Covey talks about just that. The inside-out principles that work for character, not just personalities. So think about these 4 words: principles, paradigm, habit, and proactive. If you're not one of the small percentage of individuals who look up words in the dictionary, I would highly encourage you to become one of those people. Many years ago, one of my teachers said, Michael, you should look up words in the dictionary even when you think you already know the answer. I was amazed to find the added value even in things you're not looking for when you go to look up a word like principle or paradigm or habit or proactive. And it's pretty easy for us to say proactive is sort of the opposite of reactive. But when you think about it, reactive is where most people live today. Dr. Covey talks about 3 more terms that I'd never really given much thought to. Number 1, dependence. And again, we pretty much understand the definition of dependence. Then independence. And that's always been a redeeming quality, at least for me as a student. If we can get to a place of independence, where we're not really dependent upon anyone or anything for our success. But the term that really provoked me from Dr. Covey was interdependence. Again, the synergy of all of us, resources and tools, and the mastermind knowledge from other individuals who become a part of our circle of influence. All these are things that Dr. Covey talks about in the first lesson, Be Proactive. When we take a look at the word paradigm, paradigm, again, is how you and I see things, which could prevent us from seeing other things. Here's one example. This is one of the most famous pictures of the late 80s. Now, based on your perspective or your paradigm, you're either seeing an old, not so attractive woman or a young, beautiful woman. And actually, your perspective can change from one to the other once you can see clearly the bigger picture of what's actually in front of you. Dr. Covey sums up that first habit by talking about the difference between primary greatness and secondary greatness. I'd always just heard it called greatness, and that was a good thing, becoming great, aspiring to become greater, until he gave me a new perspective, a new paradigm, where secondary greatness is really more about social recognition for your talents or what I'm known for. But primary greatness is more about character, mostly about character, who you are on the inside. So just to show you a few of the images that will help drive home some of the points that Dr. Covey makes, achieving personal and interpersonal effectiveness from the inside out is a big part of being proactive, doing things on purpose. As Thoreau said, by conscious endeavor. That's simply you or me taking the initiative. Whether it's physical, social, or emotional issues, mental or spiritual issues, all of those are addressed by Dr. Covey. So here's your personal application on habit number 1, be proactive. For a full day, listen to your language and the language of the people around you. Here's what's so amazing, how negative our society has become. Bad news is normal. And so sadly is the negative commentary we hear every day. If only, I can't, I have to. That takes away the decision or the choice that you and I have. Number 2, identify an experience based on your past experience where you might behave in a reactive manner. How could you change to a proactive response? Make a commitment to exercise your freedom to choose. Number 3, think about a problem from your work or your personal life that is frustrating to you personally. Identify steps that you could take and how you might use your circle to solve it. And 4, try the 30-day test of proactivity. The only way be proactive actually becomes a habit for you is to put it in play for the next 30 days. So, habit number 1 for highly effective people, it's pretty simple really. Be proactive. Ask how, and then you choose. Next time, begin with the end in mind. I'll see you then. For the 7 Habits, I'm Michael York.